how is Israel planning to completely take over the Gaza Strip? And maybe, instead of that happening, will the U.S. come in the last moment and force an agreement? Today on the TBN Israel podcast, Yair and I are going to try to figure out the crazy reality we're living in right now, in which Israel is actively talking about fully taking over the Gaza Strip. And at the same time, the U.S. says, I think we're stepping in to solve the entire humanitarian problem on our own. And on top of that, Hamas is continuing to refuse to reach an agreement.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Hamas released the videos of the starved Israeli hostages, and Donald Trump saw it and took it very, very seriously and changed course. We had Mike Huckabee and Steve Witkoff visiting Gaza themselves to check out, to see the situation, to see is there a starvation. And then immediately after the visit to the Gaza Strip, they went to Hostel Square in Tel Aviv, in Israel, and declared the United States is changing course. Now, the options are, one, to conquer all of Gaza by Israel, or Hamas release all the hostages at once, disarm, and the United States will be in charge of rebuilding the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
This is everything that we're going to talk about today in TBN Israel, the podcast. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, leave a like if you like us, especially if you like Mati, and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Good morning, Tomer Zmora.
Good morning. Good morning.
And thank you to all our team downstairs, the technical staff, everybody that makes this podcast happy.
Yes.
And happen.
So let's step back 1 second to explain to people how we got here. First of all, this isn't just a headline. I mean, there's some substantial and dramatic changes that are happening that are not a press release. They're not an idea. There's the world superpower, the U.S., on the one hand, and Israel, which is the fighting force of this region.
The original superpower of the Middle East.
Yes.
As of after the 12-day war with Iran.
Yeah, and also biblically.
I think it makes sense to call us that.
I agree. So we're looking at these two powers, and we're talking about really reshaping the way people are looking at what's going to happen here in a very dramatic sense. And the backdrop to this is the fact that for months and months and months, two opposing or let's call it parallel routes are taking place. One is an ongoing humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip, under which the world's press is looking at a situation. They're completely misinterpreting and falsely reporting on what's happening there, and they're stating that Israel is forcibly bringing starvation and let's call it financial and humanitarian pressure on the Gazan people, when in reality, the world's humanitarian organizations have decided together not to cooperate with Israel and the U.S., prevent aid from going into the Gaza Strip.
You both saw it in your own eyes.
We've seen it firsthand.
Times.
This is an ongoing situation that continues to escalate. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, you have Hamas Gaza, which refuses to negotiate in good favor, holds on to Israeli hostages, is starving them to death intentionally.
And he's proud of it.
Yes.
And releasing the videos themselves about the starvation of the Israeli hostages.
Exactly. So these two things are happening. And the world, well, some of it is deceitful about this, but much of it that has a soul and has a conscience looks at this, President Trump included, Prime Minister Netanyahu included. There's reports from their inner circles on like true emotional responses to this situation. And how wouldn't you? How could the Prime Minister of Israel and the President of the U.S. not see an image of a man who was a healthy and strong, young Israeli man who was starved to the point of death and forced to dig his own grave in a Hamas tunnel? How can you not respond emotionally to that? The answer is there are people that don't, because they continue to ignore that and claim that the humanitarian crisis is caused by Israel. And how can you look at the situation going on with Israel being blamed for the humanitarian crisis and not say, enough of this, let's do something about the situation?
Exactly.
And we're at that point right now where both Israel and the U.S. said, look, let's just be honest. This isn't working.
Yeah, Hamas will not agree to any kind of a compromise, to any kind of a deal or a ceasefire agreement to release all the hostages, because Hamas knows that the hostages are the only thing that is keeping them in power and alive in the Gaza Strip.
Exactly.
Even Egypt and the other Arab countries are discussed right now by Hamas, and they said it publicly for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're saying it also because they're afraid of the Muslim Brotherhood that are the main funders and behind the ideology of Hamas. And they are a big destabilizing factor in these countries. And they're afraid that they will topple the regime in multiple countries in the Middle East, like they already did once in Egypt. So this is a big situation. It doesn't affect only Israel. It has wider effects on the stabilization and the entire Middle East.
Yes.
So at the moment, Israel, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has put a proposal, or I think it was already approved by the cabinet, to conquer the Gaza Strip.
Yes.
Okay? And what that means, it means entering into areas like Deir el-Balach, like Gaza City,
Yeah.
the central camps in the Gaza Strip, in which there are highly concentrated centers of Hamas, and also the hostages are supposed to be there according to our intelligence. And that means endangering the hostages in order to dismantle Hamas.
Yes.
And basically taking steps, military steps, to bring them back home, to destroy Hamas, and to take control of Gaza.
Yeah. So I want to delay on what you just said. The big issue here is that the IDF has held off on fully taking control of the Gaza Strip, not because it can't, because it's making two choices. One choice was, we don't want to be maneuvering where the population is concentrated. So in places where you have 800,000, Gazan, some of them are refugees at this point.
Exactly.
They've been moved several times from where they were residing. 800,000 of those people concentrated in one area. And within that population, probably underground, is a dozen living Israeli hostages, or more possibly. Mm-hmm. Any kind of military maneuver there endangers both the civilian population and the hostages. The problem is, no other option is working. Yeah. We've tried endlessly to negotiate with Hamas. The U.S. sent one envoy after the other, as of the Saudis, as of the Qataris, as of the Egyptians. Countless people have tried, as even the Russians tried to be involved in this conversation.
Exactly.
Everyone's offering to help, and nothing is leading to an agreement. And we keep coming back to the same point of what do we do? The hostages are literally dying, they're starving to death in Hamas captivity. We continue to have to fight Hamas because it continue recruiting more and more young men.
We lose soldiers.
Yeah,
we lose soldiers.
Exactly.
Like just the other, I think 2 weeks ago, we lost 23 soldiers in this war in the Gaza Strip. It's
substantial.
Numbers are going up.
It's very substantial.
In the last month, it was 44 soldiers.
Yeah. And 44 soldiers is 44 Israelis from the age of 18 up until the age of 35 or 40.
Yeah. It's rough.
It's a lot.
And it's a high toll on Israeli society. And both the IDF and the U.S. government look at the situation and they say, we need to change something. What we've been trying, we've done, we've given our best effort to genuinely, honestly enter into a conversation that ends this situation with an agreement with Hamas. And it has become evident and it's become clear that Hamas refuses to enter any kind of agreement because they don't want to end the war.
Listen, Mati, they are a terrorist organization, and people keep forgetting that this is a terrorist group that was established with the sole purpose of destroying the two-state solution option between Israel and the Palestinians. All they want is a one-state, only Palestine in Israel, instead of the Jewish people to have Palestinians from the river to the sea, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to destroy the Jewish people, and they did it. They launched the attack on October 7th. We had a ceasefire agreement on October 6th of 2023. And then Hamas broke that by launching attacks, by taking hostages, and they still have these hostages. And for some reason, the entire world and the international community thinks that they can reason with this terrorist group like it has the same morals as a democratic country. Yeah. This is what the problem here is.
But there's an underlying factor. The underlying factor is people don't care about the people of Gaza.
Nobody. That's very sad.
Let's be honest here.
Exactly.
And I need to be clear about this. This isn't a question of do we prefer Israel over the people of Gaza. That's not the question. Because Israel's agenda benefits Israel and the people of Gaza. The U.S. agenda benefits Israel and the people of Gaza and everyone else in the region. And there's a very large list of organizations and people, entire countries, the French Initiative, the UN organizations that are tasked with taking care of it, several food distribution organizations, global size organizations that are actively choosing not to cooperate because it promotes an agenda in which Israel and the U.S. get to bring peace and calm to this region because they don't want that. Yeah. They want suffering and conflict. That's the reality here. We know from inside, from behind closed doors, that these 8 organizations have decided not to cooperate with Israel and not to cooperate with the U.S. in distributing aid in Gaza Strip. Yeah. To the point of causing starvation intentionally.
And we saw it. We've been to the Gaza side of the Kerem Shalom border crossing. This area is filled with food that is just waiting for the international aid organizations to bring the trucks and to bring it to the Palestinian people. And sadly, this food, at the time that I was there last week, was sitting for multiple weeks in the blazing sun and becoming rotten just because the organizations decided to make a political move and join the Hamas propaganda that Israel is starving the Gazan population.
And they're willing to do this too. They're willing to let the food rot outside, while at the same time they admit that they're unable to deliver the food inside the Gaza Strip without it being stolen by Hamas.
Exactly. They are unwilling to work with Israel to find better ways to distribute the food.
They say we won't work with Israel or with the GHF because military occupation, because they're the aggressor, and so on and so forth. And at the same time, they say 7 out of 8 trucks that enter into the Gaza Strip are immediately hijacked by Hamas.
We saw the footage.
Yeah.
We saw the footage of Hamas raiding the trucks and then driving them at super high speeds inside Palestinian cities because they're afraid that the Palestinians
will rob them
from the food.
Yeah.
It's like the Wild West.
Anyway, so all of that, you have this image of suffering in the Gaza Strip that is inflicted and almost turned up in volume by an international community that is anti-Israel and anti-America. You have a humanitarian crisis that is almost hijacked by an agenda that is to harm the people, including the people in Gaza. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, you have a military campaign that is unable to end because of Hamas' refusal to enter into an agreement. And both sides, Israel and the U.S., look at the situation and say, guys, we've really tried. We've done our best. We have to change our methodology here. And unrelated to each other, Prime Minister Netanyahu and his war cabinet come together and say, we need to think about finishing this deal in the Gaza Strip, which means putting the squeeze on every last area in Gaza until we're able to get out all Hamas combatants. And the U.S. says at the same time, and from a very emotional place, we will not trust this international community any longer to bring aid into Gaza. We're doing our own UN, our own aid distribution on the head of the UN, on the head of Hamas, to make sure the people in Gaza get food. And I need people to understand this. President Trump isn't doing this as a just America agenda thing. He is emotionally triggered, reasonably so, by the fact that people are suffering, and he's not indifferent to their suffering. And he says, if I'm in a place of power, I should take action. And he's doing exactly that. He says, if I need to work against the UN because they refuse to aid these people, so be it. If I need to bring in trucks myself, so be it. Let's help these people. And I think that's the kind of spirit and mindset that these people really need.
And also, let's end this war, and let's make sure that Hamas no longer possesses power, possesses weapons, and controls the Gaza Strip.
Absolutely.
So this is clearly the American agenda, and it aligns completely with the agenda of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Of course, we have some issues internally now in Israel because of this plan to conquer the Gaza Strip, because it endangers the lives of the hostages. If the IDF operates in areas in which the hostages are located, Hamas will execute them once they hear that the soldiers and the tanks are coming near. Well, this is an order by the Hamas organization.
You have these two sort of sandials that are running out of time. And on one hand,
they're starving.
Exactly.
They're starving. You see them, they're scalped.
The reason the IDF didn't attack was there was an assumption maybe we can negotiate them out of the hands of Hamas.
Because we did some.
Yeah. We did most.
Yeah.
We did most of them. Let's be honest here. Most of them were returned to Israel.
There were 250 in the beginning of this war.
Yeah. And so
we still have 50 remaining.
Yeah. Let's say half of them are alive, give or take, but they're dying quickly. And intentionally by Hamas. So we look at that and say, look, there has to be some kind of solution here. We realize it's not going to happen in a negotiation sense. So what do? Okay, let's go get them.
Exactly.
Because the time's running out one way or another. Okay, it's more risky, but there is no other alternative. The alternative is just to watch them die in the hands of Hamas.
Also, another issue here, and that's a military issue, that if you are standing still as a big army and not maneuvering, you are sitting ducks.
Yeah.
And basically our soldiers are sitting ducks until a decision is made by Israel either to conquer Gaza or to withdraw.
Yeah.
By just standing still, we are risking the lives of our soldiers, because what happens? Hamas terrorists, they still have lots of weapons. They've been stocking Gaza with weapons for 20 years.
Yes.
And weapons and equipment and ammunitions. Okay, so the terrorists are not as equipped and professional as they used to be before. But it's still a 16-year-old with a bomb, attaching it to an armored vehicle, and it explodes and causes the lives of IDF soldiers. I mean, kills the Israelis.
Yes.
So is still a very big problem. And if you're not maneuvering, you're exposed.
Yeah. And the IDF is aware of that. And they've spoken about it publicly. And they said, we don't want to go back into this place of having to play defense. Let's, and again, we've talked about this several times on this show. It's unfair to force the army to create strategic solutions. Mm-hmm. The army is a tactical arm.
Yeah, exactly.
It's supposed to do things that are told to it by let's call it by the government, and it's supposed to work underneath a political umbrella that creates solutions that are diplomatic and strategic and treaties, et cetera, et cetera. It can't solve all the problems. Exactly. And in the end, it has a limited tool set. It's a very substantial one, but the tools are, we take action.
Yes, but I think there is two approach here for the army, and this is what exactly now the Israeli cabinet and the government talking about which side to go, and the army saying we want to attack in that way. And there is
so one option is to basically create a siege around Gaza City and other civilian populated areas to make sure that Hamas is being choked, not receiving and not stealing the humanitarian aid, not receiving the money, and basically is unable to operate. That's one. The second option is to basically conquer Gaza City and the central camps. But Tomer, up until now, Israel is in control of 75% of the Gaza Strip, but that's like military control. It's not like you have a soldier in every street in the Gaza Strip. It's very important to explain. Being control of an area militarily doesn't mean that you have like a soldier on each doorstep or on each house. Yeah. It means that you're controlling the area and you have freedom to maneuver, relatively freedom. There still are terrorist tunnels. There still are terrorists with RPGs in the rubbles or underground or within the civilian population that are posing a threat to Israel and to the IDF.
It's rough. It's rough, and our hand has been forced, both for Israel and for the U.S., and I guess this is one of those moments in time where people make a pivot and they understand that they have to take a decision because whatever we were doing is not going to work. The Israeli population does not want to support a never-ending war in the Gaza Strip. It also doesn't want to see our hostages dying in Hamas tunnels. And it also, and this is important, several of the weekend editions of the Israeli newspapers polled Israeli society. Most of the Israeli public deeply cares and is affected by the suffering in the Gaza Strip. You see some of these things?
Yes, I do.
They're deeply affected by it and support giving aid directly and paying for aid for the people of Gaza. So the two live together in tandem. The Israeli society wants the war to end, and we want our hostages back, and we want the IDF to be able to fight, but we recognize the suffering on the other side, and we say, "Khalas, let's be done with this.
Exactly.
Let's be done with this conflict."
Even before the 7th of October, Palestinians from Gaza had working permits in Israeli communities surrounding the border, especially on these communities that were brutally attacked by Hamas and by the Palestinian people on the October 7th. So Israel wants to coexist, and we've proven it multiple times by offering jobs to the Palestinian people in Gaza, Judea and Samaria. It still happens even now during this war.
Yeah, by possibly being a little innocent on, on what these people really are willing to do. But, to our point, so we have the military option here that's on the table now. And the IDF is talking about of taking over. And again, there's quite a lot of resistance on every side of the table when it comes to this. But the idea is this, is military action is what's required to fully isolate Hamas pockets. What does that mean practically? There are areas that have been untouched in every phase of this war. In other words, we ask the population, move to this area. Once it's Deir el-Balach, once it's Gaza City, another time it's Rafah. Every time it's a different area in the Gaza Strip. And we say, look, go over there. We're dealing with Hamas over here. And Hamas, sadly, often drop their weapons in one place, move with the population to the next, and then renew fighting.
And they have weapons stored in multiple areas.
Exactly. And the IDF has sort of had to give into that situation because we didn't want to harm the civilian population in Gaza. Again, these are really large groups of people, many hundreds of thousands of people, over 1 million in certain areas. So it's 800,000, I think, in Gaza City right now. That's a huge amount of population in a very small area. Mm-hmm. Operating in that is dangerous for the IDF soldiers, it's dangerous for the hostages. And the IDF says, look, these are the decisions we have at our disposal. if we make this decision, it will be costly. It will cost us in manpower that we will lose, human lives lost on the Israeli side. It will cost us in endangering the hostages, and it will cost in civilian lives, likely on the Gazan side, because it's just a reality of fighting inside a densely populated area.
Definitely, but I think that the most costly decision is not to make a decision in the situation, because then the situation just keeps deteriorating for the hostages, for the IDF soldiers, for the economic situation of Israel, and for the internationally perspective and public diplomacy of Israel and the standing of Israel around the world.
Yeah.
Because we are losing on all these fronts as long as this war keeps on going.
Yeah, and my sense is, we were talking about this last couple of days, is there was an expectation about 2-3 weeks ago, maybe a little more, maybe 4 weeks ago now, for things to sort of like shape themselves more quickly. Iran to come to terms.
Iran collapsed. There will be a ceasefire with Iran, ceasefire with Gaza at the same time, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't think it was formulated in clear words by most people, but there was like this underlying feeling of like, we're going somewhere. Syria is going to settle in. Gaza is going to end. I even felt that. Iran's going to end.
Lebanon is like on its way to normalization.
And then it just sort of, the dust settled and everything stayed as it was. And people have this expectation of, come on, we need to end this conversation.
Exactly.
We need to be able to move forward from it. And for that to happen, there needs to be decisive action. And the IDF is between a rock and a Hamas place, in the sense that...
What, like a snake at a sheep skin?
It's like
It's a great sentence.
Great line. This is an inside joke for people that don't know what we're talking
about. By the way, Matti, I brought you a new shirt. Why are you wearing this...
stained one?
The stained one.
I'm sorry. I forgot to change.
No, it's okay. And guys, I think this is
what happens when you start the day at a very early hour. I didn't look in the mirror before I left the house. I have a stain on my shirt.
Well, guys, this is a good place to invite you guys that have either a ministry, organization, or anything relates to Israel. We like to partner with organizations that do
stain removal service.
Yeah, exactly. That do good for the land of Israel. Okay, so you've seen us partnering with organizations in our shows, and this is an option for you to bring your organization to our viewers, and together it helps us also create more content from Israel, and we can do good in this land. So this is why we started this initiative, to partner with organizations that have the heart to do good for Israel and related to Israel with projects around the world. And if you want to be part of partnering with us, sponsoring a show, you can go to israel-ad.com. Right? It's a dash, this little thing. Israel-ad.com. Okay?
I don't see the domain, so I'm not able to answer.
Well, hopefully they'll put it after the in below.
Ah, yeah, it is dash.
Yeah,
I see it here. Israel-ad.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we had great success with our partners, and we want to get more. And this is an option for you guys to email us, let us know about your project, organization, and let's work together.
Yes. So back to our topic.
I had something, so I add you.
Yeah.
How we got to a point that Hamas feeling like a winner and standing there in front of that.
I'll tell you how we got to a point. We got to this point because France, because Canada, because multiple countries around the world are stating that they will recognize a Palestinian state after 22 months that the terrorist organization has launched attacks, has kidnapped Israeli civilians and also international civilians from the United States, from Russia, from the Philippines, from Thailand, and multiple other countries. And the international community is rewarding the terrorist organization. Imagine that after the twin bombing attack in Manhattan, bin Laden, that carried out the biggest terrorist attack in our history, would get the approval from France, from Canada, that the Taliban can get a state in Afghanistan.
It'd be worse. Other countries would say, the French would say, we think that you've overreacted, America. We should give the Taliban their own country now because you've been so violent against them. Shame on you.
Your response was so bad against them. Like, they should get the prize.
Yes.
This is exactly what's happening. So if I was Hamas, I would say, cool, I'm doing something good. I get rewarded for massacring Jews, for kidnapping Israeli civilians. Why stop? Let's do more of it. The world likes that.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
The world does.
That's the sad part.
The world does.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. The reality is that both Israel and the U.S. have come to the conclusion, which is 100% correct, that there are many, many players out there, both countries and nonprofits, that are that desire to see destruction, that desire to see suffering, and their true faces come to light. The face of the people that show glee, that are happy when they see suffering of Jews. The kind of people that doesn't matter what the situation is, that promote an agenda which ends in the destruction of the state of Israel. And it doesn't matter what the solution is as long as it's anti-Israel. And their actions have become clear. Mm-hmm. These are the people that chant from the river to the sea. These are the people that say, let's recognize a Palestinian state when one side of it is Hamas and another one is 90-something-year-old Abu Mazen in Ramallah. It's beyond a joke at this point. It's what is the word I'm looking for? It's a moral corruption to the most extreme degree possible.
Exactly.
Where people look at reality, they put a hand over their eyes, and they say, I choose to ignore.
I choose to blame the Jews.
And
that's what it is.
And they do this,
exactly.
From what I can see, you are to blame. And they've covered their face.
Exactly.
They choose, it's like the three monkeys. They hear no evil, see no evil. What is it? Do no evil? Whatever. That's what it is. It's they see evil with their own eyes and they say, no, this isn't the reality I choose to recognize. I'm ignoring everything Hamas did. I'm ignoring everything that happened there. Israel look at all the bombs they're dropping in Gaza, as if there's no war against Hamas.
Exactly.
Look at how violent they are, as if Hamas isn't holding Israeli captives. Look at all the civilians that were hurt. It's like as if Hamas isn't hiding behind civilian population.
Yeah, and if you look backwards, for 20 years, Hamas has been launching suicide bombing attacks against Israelis, rocket fire on a daily basis towards Israeli communities on the border with Gaza and also towards Tel Aviv, towards Jerusalem, towards the center of Israel. We didn't hear anything from the world about these rockets. Why? Because we have a good Iron Dome defense system, but if a rocket would have flown to Paris, I want to see what the world has to say on that moment to this terrorist organization. If a rocket from a terrorist group would be launched towards Canada, would the Canadians react? This is the comparison.
Canada right now, I don't think is the best of examples.
Canada might not.
They're in a weird political situation over there. But most countries would respond with extreme violence. Look, there's a level of moral corruption and bias that has come to light where both Israel and the U.S. and I think other countries have realized, look, this conversation is absurd. And we're not going to engage with these people. There's no point in talking to them. An international community that looks at this situation and says, well, clearly, evidently, the only one to blame in the situation is Israel. Let's condemn them more. Maybe that'll solve the problem in the Gaza Strip.
Exactly. It's the opposite because the terrorists see the world is turning against Israel. Every day this war continues.
It's biblical.
It is.
It's biblical because the biblical, and this is not our agenda, end time text in the scripture talks about two things: restoration of justice on one hand, but a moral corruption on the other hand. And the two happen at the same time. It's when evil becomes good and good becomes evil on the one hand, other people have to stand up and fight against that and recognize what is good. And end time scripture talks about a restoration of justice. And people think it always happens in this, relaxed, calm fashion. Sometimes it's crafted and becomes evident in a time of war and conflict. That's what we're experiencing right now.
I feel that Israel is losing on one battle, the battle of telling our story, the battle of the true story that's happening here. Because out there in Europe, and especially in Europe, when you opening the television or going to social media, the story that you hear about what's happening here, it's so different from the truth that hold or what's happening in Gaza. So I think this campaign, this evil campaign that's happening now, is destroying us. We need to fight.
Exactly, Tomer. So that's exactly why we launched the campaign to stand with Israel. In the middle of this campaign against Israel, we at TBN Israel decided to launch a campaign to stand with Israel, to raise more funds, to create more video productions, more documentaries, to explain what is happening in Israel on the ground. So guys, if you want to be part of this campaign, help us share the truth. First of all, you can hit the subscribe button. Second of all, you can hit the donate button on YouTube, or you can go to TBN stand.org/standwithisrael and join our campaign to share the truth of what's happening. This is a biblical level campaign of distortion of lies that the enemy is waging. We need to give them a fight with a campaign that shares the truth.
Yeah. And there's this perception out there that I had before the October 7th war started, that there's shades to truth, and there are people that slightly have a different perspective, but they also ultimately want the truth most of the time.
It's not true now.
It's become so clear that isn't the case. I personally was wrong in my understanding of how the world works in this area, where there's just so many people out there who don't care about the facts. As long as the facts, they can manufacture.
They align to what they have in their head.
Exactly, where they can lock them into a very narrow worldview, where Israel and everything related to those Judeo-Christian values is always the evil. As long as everything falls exactly into that understanding of the world, it's fine. Anything outside of that understanding and perception is false and a lie. And it doesn't matter where it happens. It doesn't matter what evidence is shown. And it goes farther than that. They are willing to openly lie and to deceive their audiences, to spread complete lies, to show pictures of dying Yemeni children and claim that they're Palestinian kids that are dying, to show images that they know full well are kids with genetic disorders in the Gaza Strip and claim that their kids being starved by Israel. Meanwhile, that same kid received medical aid with the help of Israel.
Exactly.
That's the level, and this is not a mistake, and it's not a one-time thing. It happens every day on global outlets. It's the New York Times, it's the BBC, it's some of the news outlets that do this on a regular basis. And there really is no one solution to this, aside from one, spreading the truth, but two, for audiences becoming more savvy of how deceitful outlets are willing to be. And when you pull up a news story and it says, Israel attacks in Syria, stop for a second and question, maybe there's a bigger story here.
Maybe there's a reason why we're attacking Syria.
Why are we suddenly bombing like government?
I'm sure that the IDF woke up in the morning, somebody in the IDF, and said, let's hit
opening
Syria.
Opening a map, let's attack this country in the Middle East. Yalla. That's the decision making for sure. Yeah.
And the real story was Israel fights along the Druze minority that was being massacred by the soldiers of Ashara or El Julani. Anyway, HTS, the organization.
By the way, he was wanted for $100 million because he's a terrorist linked to Al-Qaeda in Syria. Wanted by the United States of America.
Was wanted.
Just a few months ago.
Yeah.
Not a long time ago.
Anyway, so and that's a reality. And people look at that, they falsify the story, they present something that is on a good day half-truth, and then weeks later or a week later, 4 days later, they put out the weakest, the most unclear, the most indecisive retraction of their statement. Oh, actually, this wasn't exactly correct. No, you openly lied to tens of millions of people.
Yeah.
And you tried to shape their worldview in a way that is anti-Israeli always, and you do so repeatedly. All that to say, then we're now back in this place where things become clear. And when there's a moment of clarity, you need to take action on it. Israel understands there's no one to negotiate with. Who are we going to talk to? Hamas? They've proven they want destruction. Tomer asked the valid question, how are they winning? They're winning because they want destruction.
Exactly.
When you beat them, they win. When people in Gaza are hurt, they win. When people in Israel are hurt, they win again.
When their leaders die, they win. It's like there's no winning this situation.
Because if all you want is to burn down the house, everything is a win to you. The only time you don't win is when you don't have any stake in the house at all. And that's where Israel is right now. We can't negotiate with terrorists. It should be obvious. It took us a while to figure out.
For some reason, the world really wants us to negotiate.
Yeah, there's no negotiating with them.
Exactly.
Okay, now it's clear. We realize they're not going to give us back our hostages, and they're trying to starve them to death. And they're doing that to torment the people in Israel and the families of those hostages.
And we see that the masters, the Iranians, after suffering a massive defeat and launch after launch of attacks by Israel, by the United States of America, they are suffering from a severe economic crisis in the country, a drought, a heat wave, and multiple other shortages that the Iranians are suffering from. They are willing to get up and threaten Israel with more attacks, with more military power, to invest the money that they do not have at developing more weapons, more anti-rocket defensive systems to carry out more attacks against Israel. So you see that they have no morals and they do not care about the population. The only thing they care about is destruction. So Exactly. Let's burn the house down.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
And then at the same time, you have the U.S. that looks at this. And I'm so happy to hear, you rarely hear these kind of reports, where the super leader of the superpower of the world breaks down in tears by being touched by a horrific image. And you hear that President
From
Trump
day one.
repeatedly has cried in front of other people over the images of Eviatar, who was held in Hamas captivity, a man who's half the size he was when he was taken hostage, who was digging his own grave. President Trump looks at that, reportedly calls Prime Minister Netanyahu and says, we have to get your hostages back.
Met all of them. Every person that came back, Trump asked to meet him.
Yeah.
He really, really involved in story. I think Biden was also touched by the families back then. But it's amazing to see leaders in that size taking...
Yeah, where you see a moment of humanity in them. And the same thing, by the way, applies to U.S. government officials. And I know like the woke left will hate hearing this. People in the Trump administration have expressed more sympathy and empathy to the suffering of people in Gaza than any administration, other government in the world.
Yeah, sure.
Very openly spoken publicly about how painful it is for them to see human suffering in the Gaza Strip, and they've taken action on that topic to help the suffering. At the same time, the UN and other they put their money where their mouth is 100% of the time. It's very impressive to see. You have other organizations whose sole mission on earth is to bring help to people under fire. That is the only reason they exist. Yeah. They're funded by billions of dollars who actively decide to sit on their hands instead of driving the truck.
Pick up the tuna cans, the baby food formula, and giving it to the Palestinian people.
Yes.
They can.
And those people, the UN sits in a truck fully loaded with goods and says, we simply see no solution to help the people in Gaza unless we're given the aid, and we can knowingly, by the way, pass it on to the hands of Hamas. The stuff is on their trucks waiting for pickup, and they say, there's nothing we can do, our hands are tied. Complete lie.
And refuse to
distribute aid.
And make a plan with the IDF on how to distribute it safely.
Yes. They don't want to distribute it at all. Not only that, they've made threats against any organization that's related to the UN that if they dare cooperate with the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or Israel, and they're caught doing so, they will never again cooperate with the UN.
Exactly.
How disgusting of a character do you need to be and an organization to take that kind of action to say, on the back of the suffering Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, I'm willing to force a humanitarian crisis. Heaven forbid that Israel is able to help people. Heaven forbid that this organization that's backed by the U.S. and Israel is able to aid the people. How disgusting.
Oh, it's terrible. So, Mati, what do you think will happen? You think Israel will conquer Gaza?
Well, there's yes.
Yes.
Yes. One, I think we're expecting to hear a big statement from President Trump. We've been talking about this for several days at this point. I don't know when it's coming. It's coming soon. He's supposed to present a new plan for what's going to happen in the Gaza Strip. And the word on the street is that he's planning to bring aid directly to the people in Gaza because they've become rightfully so disgusted by the hypocrisy of the UN and other organizations in preventing aid from getting there.
We all remember what happened when Biden tried to do that with the floating...
the dock, yeah.
It didn't last for very long.
No, it lasted a bit.
The fishes destroyed it too fast. And
No, it lasted several weeks. Yeah. But still, while that dock existed, the U.S. was bringing aid from the sea. Mm-hmm. Most of the aid that was brought into the Gaza Strip came in through the land crossings in Israel.
In Israel, yeah.
Before we controlled the Philadelphia corridor, by the way.
Important to say that the border crossing between Egypt and Gaza has been closed throughout this entire, war, except for maybe only humanitarian cases to bring out people for medical treatment. No food is coming from...
No, they're coming to Israel.
No, they come to Israel now.
Yeah, but no food is coming from Gaza into the Gaza Strip, from Egypt into the Gaza Strip.
It's a very interesting response. In the wake of the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th, Egypt looked and said, Hamas attack Israel, what should we do? Let's build the tallest fence in this region and the most fortifications to make sure none of these people come into Egypt when Egypt wasn't even a side to this conflict.
Exactly.
That's their response. Everything in our power, let's barricade it, let's bring in the tanks, let's call the Israelis and say, guys, we need to bring in more...
Let me bring more troops into Sinai because we need to protect ourselves from Hamas and from the Palestinian spillover.
That's what and excuse my cynicism here, that's what Arab solidarity and Muslim solidarity looks like in the Middle East.
Exactly.
Let's be honest here. The people in Gaza should be refugees in other countries because they're in a region that is torn by war, because they live under the governance of Hamas. In every other part of the world, in any other time, when there's a regional war, people allow the refugees to move from one country to another. Not in this case. Heaven forbid the people in the Gaza Strip get to come out and go and not be under fire in a different region. Egypt was willing to go to war and lose U.S. support and aid just not to make sure...
Not to receive the Palestinians.
Not to receive a single Palestinian. King of Jordan.
Same thing.
Joins forces with the Egyptians and he says very publicly, very quickly, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And so does every other Arab
country. We have
country.
disagreement with Israel. We cannot be involved in this fight.
Yeah, and it shows many things, but much of it is how much politics are involved in this conflict and how much the desire of these other nations, I'm not talking about Egypt and Jordan specifically here, how much other nations are willing to prolong and extend the suffering of the people of Gaza as long as it serves their purpose. And their purpose is not for the Gazan people or the Palestinians, it's for the Israeli people. And always has been for the Israeli people to suffer, not to benefit anything.
Exactly, yeah.
And so what we're looking at, to answer your question, President Trump is supposed to make a big statement. The IDF is on the fence right now because things are tricky. Expanding our military maneuvers within the Gaza Strip is going to come with a price. The Israeli public is waiting and wanting to have a resolution. We don't want additional conflict. We don't want additional fighting. There's a huge desire to end this, huge desire to have the hostages back. We were talking about this earlier. I was crying, and I think many people in Israel, watching the footage of Aviatar in the tunnel.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking to watch it, and to see the suffering. I was watching. I forget the guy's name. One of the hostages that was released in a previous deal. He came in and was telling about how the Hamas was starving him. What was it?
When we met him?
No, it wasn't him. He was on Channel 12 News. And he was explaining. No. It's like one of the latest deals. The guy comes on and he's talking about how Hamas were basically they were stripping them down every couple of weeks to make sure that they looked like they were starving to death, and they'd cut their rations. Do you see this? I need to find the link. They'd cut their rations to say, "Oh no, you look like you're eating enough. Let's cut your rations farther so you look like you're suffering more." That was the goal. They wanted them to look like they were suffering. They wanted them to look like they were being tortured almost to death.
Yeah.
That is the agenda of this organization. So I think the only way to go with this is very strongly, very decisively, Israel and the U.S. just be honest about what we're able to accomplish. We're not going to be able to reach a deal with Hamas. We're not going to be able to convince the UN to stop being the hypocritical organization that it is. So if we recognize that reality, take action in the right direction.
Exactly.
Dismantle Hamas, force the aid in through Gaza on the head of the UN, on the head of the aid organizations, on the head of Hamas, and fight against Hamas to prevent them from harming their own population, to make sure people get aid, at least to help that solution.
Yeah, and get the hostages. Try to get them with a military operation.
Yes.
Because it looks like Hamas will not give them up in any kind of negotiations or a deal.
Yeah.
That's it.
If people have lasted this long,
yeah.
One, I think they deserve 5 points at least of our non-existent point system. But two, to encourage everyone, if you're watching this at home, if you stuck around this long, pause for a second, like, share, and subscribe. Take the link to this video, send it to someone else, subscribe to this channel, ting the little bell that's on the corner over there, so you don't miss another broadcast. But more importantly, it tells the YouTube algorithm and the other algorithms that this is content that other people should see, and we're here solely for that purpose, to reach the world with the truth of what's happening here on the ground. Yair and I and our team, extensive team, wake up every morning with the goal of telling a truthful report of what's happening here in the country.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you very much, Mati.
Thank you, Yair. Thank you, Tomer.
You're welcome.
And guys, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, share the truth of what's happening in Israel, and pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And we'll see you again next time on TBN Israel, the podcast.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel.